All right, what's good, you guys? So I was reading the comments on one of my YouTube videos, and someone says, I understand that SP can't do sidechain compression, but do you know a workaround for it? And that actually made me want to make this video. So in this video, I'm going to show you guys how I kind of get that sidechain compression sound using the compressors on the SP-404mk2 and try to explain it in a way that's understandable. So with that being said, let me go ahead and show you guys the loop that I have. So just a really simple loop, and you might notice that the mix just sounds empty. It doesn't really sound lively at all. That's intentional because that's the first step. We have to get a decent mix, or we have to get a mix that's going to be appropriate for this technique. So what we're doing here is we have our kick drum at full volume. We have our snare at just below full volume. And then we have these hi-hats. They're pretty quiet. And then we have our sample chop. This is playing at 19 for the volume. So we pretty much have everything turned down very, very low. So the sustained sounds, or the sounds that are going to be a little bit too consistent, we have those turned down. So we turned that down because when we turn those compressors on, it's going to make everything louder. It's going to try to pump everything up. This sound is going to be loud, so I don't have to worry about it being loud later on down the line. But then we also have our kick drum at full volume. So the reason why we have it at full volume is because when those compressors make the sample jump up, this kick drum is going to make it duck down. It's going to make the samples duck down, giving us that sidechain sound. So let me go ahead and show you guys an example of that. Let's go ahead. Let's turn on a compressor on bus 2. So as you can see, when we added that compressor, we started getting that ducking effect. And this is actually step 2. So you got to add that compressor and kind of push it a little bit to the limit. Push it a little bit harder because we want that sample chop to get raised up. We want those sustained sounds to get raised up just so they can get choked out and ducked down by this kick drum. Now, speaking of the kick drum, I'm using this kick drum specifically. It's a very low kick drum. And when I say low, I mean in the frequency range. So it's really thumpy. It has a lot of low frequencies. It sounds like maybe anywhere around 70, 80, maybe 90 hertz. That's where it's residing around. And that's a really big frequency range. Bass frequencies are very loud relative to like a string sound. This kick drum is taking up a lot of space whenever all the other sounds are playing, which makes it easier for the sounds to want to dunk under this kick drum. Compared to something like this, these kick drums are a little bit higher in the frequency range. So these might be around like 100 hertz, 150, somewhere around that range. And it's going to be a little bit harder for that compressor to want to choke the beat out with that sound. So let's go ahead and show you guys that. So as you can see, we're not getting that ducking sound that we're supposed to be getting. Now let's try it with that other kick drum. Now with that being said, this is a pretty short kick drum, and I really shortened it down because I didn't want it to be a really big kick drum. It would have just made the sample duck down a little bit too much for my liking. So I kept the kick drum pretty tight, and whenever that compression hits it, it boosts it up and just makes it sound really nice and thumpy. With that being said, let's go ahead and let's move on to the next steps of trying to get this sidechain on lock. So we have some sidechain going on, and we can try to get this compressor to sound as good as it can, but it'll be a lot easier if we just add some extra compressors. So let's go over to bus 3 and 4. We have double compressors on. So now on bus 3 and 4, we have 2 compressors on, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna play the beat, play along with the kick drum, and we're gonna listen to how it sounds and how this kick drum is reacting with the compressor. So let's get our kick drum. We also have another layer playing, so let's see how it reacts with this kick drum. So now we have a little bit more compression, pumping it a lot more now. We can also use different types of compressors. So instead of doing double compressors, we can do something like a 303 and a compressor, or we can even switch around that order and it's going to give us a different sound. There's also other effects on here that add compression, such as the lo-fi effect, also the cassette effect. It adds just a subtle amount of compression, and all that stuff you're going to hear, because when we're pumping this stuff up that much, those subtle changes become pretty dramatic. So let me go ahead and show you guys how that sounds. So we're playing it dry right now. Let's get our compressors on. 303 in compressor. Double compressor. This is 303 plus cassette. Let's try to get the compressor a little bit louder. Let's see what else we can do. We got lo-fi and 303 vinyl. So I think it's really important for you guys to know that when you add all these compressors, it's really, really hard for you to control your dynamics. So you might be sacrificing some punch because you're using all these compressors to boost your sounds. That's why it's really important to get the mix down to a T. So I feel like if I mix this a little bit better, we can get even more sidechain out of it. And that's the third step. After you have your double compressors going on, go back to your mix and crank it down, make some adjustments, because a good mix is going to go a lot further than having some fancy compressors playing. So let's go ahead, let's try to use one that we like and just work on mixing it down. Okay, so we know we want this kick drum to be at full volume. We can leave that right there. Let's get this sample down to like 6. And then we can also get these hi-hats can go down. Turn up the snare a little bit so it can punch through that mix a little bit more. Now let's see how it sounds with these compressors. So as you heard, that compression really started to shine. So it's really important for you guys to make sure that your mix is on point, especially if you're using 2 compressors. Matter of fact, you can use more than 2 compressors. So if we're on bus 2, for example, we're using bus 1 right now, which is unfortunate. We're using it for that filter. But if we were using bus 2, we can do something like cassette sim, because that has a little bit of compression. We can also do something like the lo-fi effect. We can also do warm saturator. That might be a weird one. But let's see, we can also do maybe even filter and drive if you want to add like some drive to it, some bump around the low end. So, and believe it or not, you can run up to 5 compressors in a row. You can run a compressor on bus 1, bus 2, as well as bus 3 and 4, but you can also run a compressor on the external source bus. So if you hold shift, press external source, let's turn that off, press the push knob in, we can go ahead and switch the effects on this bus. We can also apply a 303 compressor on there, so we can add that compression. We can add the lo-fi, maybe some 404 vinyl sim, cassette sim, as well as the compressor. So we can run up to 5 compressors. If you're running some sounds into the external source, 5 compressors is pretty crazy. You're going to get some crazy pumping effects. But with that being said, let's go ahead and just try to get the sidechain down to a T, and let's utilize the bus 2 that we have to add a little bit more compression, or maybe some saturation, just something to make the mix sound a little bit more interesting. So let's go ahead and play this one. And on bus 2, let's see how cassette sim sounds. Make sure you play with that tone arm. You can also add drive to it. But let's also explore lo-fi. This is more compression on it. Let's see what else we can do. Another compressor. I actually ran a compressor on bus 2, and since the compressor on bus 2 is going to change the compressors on bus 3 or 4, we can kind of use this compressor to do something a little bit different. So we can up the attack to get that kick drum to poke through the mix a little bit more and not really worry as much, because we know that the compressors later on down the signal chain is going to catch it and also lower down that kick drum. So we can really do some interesting stuff with these compressors when we actually start going in and getting a little bit more surgical with it and just getting all the parameters perfect. All right, so that's pretty much going to do it for this video. Make sure that you explore the compressor. All right, the compressor is such a powerful effect on the SP-404. It can really bring out a lot of character in your beats because of the way it's compressing it, and it can sound really good when you get the settings down packed. So with that being said, you guys, make sure you guys leave a like, make sure you comment down any recommendations you guys have. If you have some techniques that you know about that I didn't cover, I know that you can also use the envelope to give the illusion of sidechain compression. I also saw somebody on YouTube using the tremolo, I believe it was a tremolo or a slicer, one or the other, but it was a pretty clever way to get that sidechain effect. But I feel like since in lo-fi beats, our kick drums can be a little bit unpredictable, or they won't play at a consistent rate, so I feel like just pumping up that compressor and really trying to get that sound to pump down below that kick drum really is just the only option sometimes. So yeah, make sure you guys check out my latest beat tape, Proof of Existence. It's a beat tape full of just some raw and dirty beats. It's been getting pretty good reviews, and I just want to say shout out to all the homies that checked it out already and left comments down on the socials, man. It's really nice to hear what you guys have to say about the beat tape, and you guys have no idea how good it feels to have my hard work pay off, man. Like, I'm forever just learning on this journey, so I'm just glad to have you guys by my side to witness the change and witness the growth. So with that being said, you guys, I'm not going to hold you too much longer. I'm gonna get out of here. Peace out.